What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Kelsey's Constrictors. In today's video, I'm going to cover 4 things that I wish I had known when I first started my reptile breeding venture. I also have a big announcement to make, and I'll share that with you at the end of the video, so make sure you don't miss it. So before I get into the main part of the video, I want to cover 2 things that were kind of related to the last video that I came out with. You may know that my camera has been acting up on me. It's actually the little battery pack that you plug the battery into and then plug that into the wall to recharge it. For some reason, it just quit working and I couldn't figure out how to get it working again. I didn't do a whole lot of troubleshooting on it, but basically the charger doesn't work. The camera is really old. I think that the camera that I have came out in 2011, so finding a charger for it is really difficult. And it's not the type of camera where you can plug it in and then plug it into the wall and that'll charge it. It has to be charged separately because it's a lithium-ion battery. But anyways, so this is my second time making this video, which is a little frustrating. But when I went to make it the first time, I remembered that I had another digital camera from years ago, maybe 10 years ago. So it's about the same age, but it's a little point and shoot. It's not like a DSLR. So I figured, oh, I'll just use that camera real quick for this video and maybe the next one while I'm waiting on a charger to come or looking for one on eBay or whatever kind of solution I'm going to come up with to solve my no camera problem. Because I really don't like using my phone. I can use my phone, but I don't have a good tripod or holster for it, so it's kind of hard for me to film with my phone. Plus then there's a whole hurdle of getting it transferred from my phone over to my computer, and to me the quality just isn't as good, so I didn't want to film with my phone, so I remembered I had this other camera. So I pulled it out and I got everything ready and I made the whole entire video. I actually made 2 videos. I filmed for about 2.5 hours last night, and then when I went to start editing my video for this week, when I started to play it, it literally sounded like a VHS tape. Some of y'all might be too young to know what that is. I hope not. Am I getting old? I'm getting old, aren't I? It doesn't take the video in the same way as a camera, like a DSLR would take a video. So if any of y'all are techie and you could explain it to me, I'm not very good at that kind of stuff. I don't do very good with technology in general. I'm kind of stuck in like 10 years ago. But anyway, I think that the way the camera is, it saves the video file as a different type of video file, and it's just not as good of quality. And I was so mad because I literally spent 2.5 hours filming last night and I couldn't use any of the footage. I even used like a little noise reduction feature that is in the video editing program that I use, and it did help quite a bit, but it still sounded like a home video or something off of AFB. Hard for me to give you any numbers as far as the cost of maintaining your animals because it really depends on what you're planning on keeping and breeding. So I was like, there is no way I'm putting this video on my channel. I did order a battery charger on eBay, but it's coming from China and it says that the estimated delivery day is March 10th. And I can't really wait 2 months to make another video. So I ended up going out tonight and I actually found a very good deal on a used camera, and this one is actually 5 years newer than the one that I had before, and I paid about the same price for it. So I'm hoping that this camera will last longer for me, or at least the battery pack will last longer for me. But so far, I think I'm very happy with the camera. So the other thing in the last video was my new rat rack. If you haven't seen that, I will put a link in the description box below. You can see the entire snake room tour of where I have all my snakes now at my friend's house, and I also show you the new rat rack that I got. So I go check on my snakes and my rats about twice a week at my friend's house, and when I went over there the other night, I was checking on all the rats and they were acting kind of weird, and I went to double check their little water spouts just because I'm paranoid about stuff and I want to make sure everything's working properly, especially because it's so new and I don't have them with me, so I try to check everything, make sure it's right since I'm not there all the time. So I went to check their little water spout and there was no water coming out of the top one. So I checked all the rest of them on the way down and there was water coming out of those. So I was like, what's wrong with this top spout? Well, I spent about 5 or 10 minutes messing with it, and as I kept messing with it, less and less water was coming out of all of them. So I was like, what is wrong with this? So I turned the knob on the actual bucket. I was like, maybe it got turned off somehow because I was messing with it when I was trying to stop the leak. Everything looked totally fine. I went to take the lid off to see how much water was in there, and it was still full of water. Well, then I realized that there was no hole in the top of the bucket. So you know how when you pour out a 2-liter bottle of something, or like a milk jug, you're pouring out whatever's inside of it and you see air bubbles going up. If there's no air to replace whatever liquid is coming out of whatever container you have it in, then the water or liquid will no longer come out because there's nothing to replace that space that's being filled with water. I felt so bad for the rats that they had gone without water for 2 or 3 days, which I guess they would have had water for a little bit because it takes some time to build up the pressure in the bucket. But I felt so bad for them because as soon as I got it running again, they were all like fighting and clawing at each other trying to get at the water, and I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. So now the rats are all situated, their water is good, I drilled a hole in the bucket, so that shouldn't be happening again, and I will make sure I check it every single time just because I'm paranoid about that kind of stuff and I want to make sure everybody's taken care of right. So I just wanted to touch on that. If you are getting a rat rack or if you just got a rat rack and there's not a hole in your bucket, make sure you put a hole in the bucket. The last thing I want to show you before I get into the main part of the video is I got a new snake. She's a GHI 100% het TSK Xanthic. I have decided to name her Xena, and I'm very excited to put her in with my projects for next year. Unfortunately, my leopard het Xanthic is one of the snakes that passed away a few weeks ago, so this is her replacement, even though you can't really replace an animal. As far as my breeding projects go, she's going to be my replacement for her. So hopefully next season I'll have some TSK babies. She is awesome. I love her so much. She's super sweet. She has a great personality. She's not very head shy, which is awesome. That's kind of unusual for ball pythons, and she is in great health. She looks awesome. So she is currently quarantining in my apartment with me. I have hidden her bin away just in case the apartment people come in. Thankfully, snakes are pretty easy to hide, unlike rats, but I do have her quarantining here. She'll be here with me for about a month, and then once she's finished quarantining, I will move her into the regular rack with the rest of my snakes at my friend's house. So now let's go over 4 things I wish I had known when I was first starting out. The first thing I wish I had known when I was starting out was how to get what I'm paying for. Making sure that the animal's healthy, making sure that what they're telling me is exactly what's going on with the animal, and also being able to sex the snake myself. If you're brand new to keeping reptiles, there's a lot of things you have to think about before you buy your first animal. I actually did a whole video on this, and I will link it up here if you care to go watch it. I talk about picking a breeder, picking a healthy animal, and making sure you don't get scammed in the process. So far, there's been 2 snakes that I have bought that were not what I was originally told they were as far as the health of the animal or the sex of the animal. The first one unfortunately passed away 2 weeks after I got him. He was sold to me as a female, and he was drastically underweight of what he should have been for his age. And then the second one I was told was a female as well, and it was a male, and unfortunately it was not from a breeder or pet shop, so there was nothing I could do about it. So now I'm just stuck with a male snake that I was hoping to breed this year. Unfortunately, just like any industry, there are scammers galore everywhere you look, and 2 of the easiest ways to scam people is lying about the sex of the snake or just making a mistake, or lying or making a mistake about the genetics of the animal. Probably the easiest and most prevalent way to get scammed this way is with recessive genes, especially if you're buying a baby snake and you have to wait 2 to 3 years before you can breed it and try to prove it out. You could be paying an extra several hundred or maybe even several $1,000s for a snake that doesn't actually carry those genetics. For that reason, I always recommend people, if you're getting into a recessive breeding project or if you're interested in recessive genes, only buy your animals from someone who has a good reputation. The second thing I wish I had known is the cost of raising all these animals. I have been keeping snakes for about 6 years, so I did have some kind of an idea of how much it would cost to feed all of them. However, I didn't factor in the fact that some of the rats end up being wasted, especially if you're feeding frozen thawed, and the cost of substrate is something else that I didn't factor in. Right now I'm using Eco Earth, which is a fine coconut husk bedding, but I'm thinking about switching over to Reptitherm because a lot of people have told me that it's significantly cheaper using it because the type of bedding it is, a little bit goes a lot farther than the Eco Earth because it's bigger chunks. So once I go through my stash of substrate that I have right now, I'm probably going to be trying a couple of different things, or if I like the Reptitherm, I may just try that and then stick with that. Another cost you may not have thought about is the electricity. Running heat pads, heat lamps, or heat tape for a significant amount of snakes in your collection is going to make your electricity bill go up. Thankfully, mine hasn't gone up too much, but I did notice an increase. And of course, there's always the unknown expenses that tend to pop up always at the worst time, such as vet bills, and I have had to pay for a necropsy before, so these are things that can come up out of nowhere that you just don't plan for. And if you have any animals at home, you know that going to the vet is not cheap, even just for a checkup. It seems like when I was younger, you could go to the vet with your dog or your cat, and a vet visit was like $35 $80 for a checkup, and now it's like $120. It's insane. And then you factor in if your animal is sick, then you're running tests, and maybe you're doing x-rays or whatever you're doing, and every single thing they do adds another price tag to your bill. The next thing that I wish I had known starting out is probably the most important for me personally, and that is the genetics of my animals. If you follow me on Instagram or you've been watching my videos for a while, you know that my dream snake is an axanthic clown pied snake. So those are the 3 recessive genes that I primarily am going to be focusing on in my breeding projects. When I first started buying snakes to embark on my venture, I was most concerned with having as many snakes as possible for the least amount of money as possible. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have $5,000 or $10,000 just laying around burning a hole in my pocket. A few months ago, I had a 1984 300ZX. It was an awesome little car and it had original T-tops and everything. It had a coolant leak, but I could never figure out where it was coming from, so it ended up blowing a radiator hose, and it basically turned into a lawn ornament for a while. When I made the decision to start buying snakes and get into this hobby, I decided to sell the car because I would much rather have my animals and have things that I can take care of and love than to just have a big hunk of metal that's sitting outside and not running and not bringing me any kind of happiness or joy in life. So that being said, I had X amount of money that I was going to be putting into the hobby. So with that money, I told myself, okay, I need to get as many snakes as possible with this amount of money. Looking back, I wish I had spent more money and had less snakes and focused on the genetics that I really wanted to work with versus just trying to find the cheapest snakes possible and just buying as many as I could. Doing that caused me to end up with a bunch of snakes that don't really fit into my main project breeding plans. At the end of the day, I don't regret it because I do like having variety in my collection, and I want to be able to produce snakes that anyone can buy and everyone can enjoy in different morphs, because I primarily like dark morphs, but a lot of people like light morphs. So it's nice that I have like Xena, she's my champagne super pastel inchy. It's nice that I have her, so when I breed her in a couple years, I can produce some really nice light colored snakes because people like that too. So it's not the end of the world that I ended up doing it that way, but if I could go back, I would probably take that money and I would spend more per snake and just have less snakes than try to get as many as possible. That is one reason why I got scammed on one of my snakes that was sold to me as a female, because I found her online. I found him online. I got so excited at the price. I was like, wow, this is such a great price for a female, almost adult ball python. And then I found out that it was a male, and I was like, no wonder it was so cheap. When it comes to getting a good deal or finding a bargain, I find it extremely difficult to turn down, which is not a great trait for me because I'll end up buying something just because it's cheap without really thinking it through, and that's also one reason why that happened. The fourth and final thing that I wish I had known in the beginning was the risks that are involved in raising so many animals. I did a video a couple of weeks ago where I talked about how my apartment complex found out that I had all of my snakes in my apartment, and they told me I had a week to get everything out. I guess with the apartment, it's not really something I wish I had known in the beginning because I knew I wasn't supposed to have the animals in here, but it's more a thing of I wish I could have predicted the future, because I probably would have done things a little bit differently had I known that we were going to get new management here and they were going to be really strict and I was going to have a big problem even though I've been living here for almost 2 years. Because if I had known that I was going to have to try to find a place to keep all my snakes and my rats and all that, I probably would have just waited on starting my collection and starting breeding and stuff until next year once I move out of this place. But oh well, it ended up working fine, and I'll just have to continue to seek solutions as I go and as problems pop up. The other risk to raising so many animals is the sad reality of mortality. When you're raising animals on a large scale, there's bound to be some that don't make it, either for genetic reasons or health reasons or improper husbandry. Especially if you're just starting out and you're learning everything, there's going to be things that go wrong, and sometimes an animal will end up dying because of some mistakes that you may make, but some things can't be helped as well. So I wish I had known in the beginning that death was going to be a part of doing this and getting into this hobby, so I could be a little bit more mentally prepared, and also really honing in and being on point with all of my information and my research for every single animal, and making sure that I keep a close eye on them and take them to the vet if they need it. And now it is time for the big announcement. Last week, Gary from Gary's Constrictors, and his YouTube channel is called Constricted and Addicted, he asked me to be featured in one of his YouTube videos, and we did a little interview, and we also played a fun game, so that was super fun. And we basically just got to know each other a little bit, and what got us started in the hobby, and what we love about snakes, and things that we wish we had known in the beginning, different kinds of things like that. It was a really good time. I had a fun conversation with him. It was really great getting to know him. That video is going to be debuting on February 3rd. I will make sure that I let y'all know as soon as it hits. Being asked to be featured in someone else's YouTube video on someone else's channel was really an honor for me, and I can't wait to see the end result. Is there anything I didn't cover that you wish you had known before you got started? Leave it in the comments below. If so, make sure you hit the subscribe button. I come out with new snake videos every single week. Follow us on Instagram. It's Kelsey's Constrictors, and I'll see y'all next time. It's actually the little battery pack. It's actually the it's just kind of a pain to me because I don't have a good what's the word?